Greetings people of YouTube, and today I'm really excited to be bringing you all my review on the highly anticipated Baiwei Deformation model, also known as a KO version of the Studio Series Revenge of the Fallen Voyager class Megatron. Now, I am in no way a fan of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, but I gotta admit, that film's Megatron design is one of my favorite Megatron designs in all of the live-action movies, and from what I've seen, this figure is going to improve a lot on that Studio Series version. No further dilly-dallying, and let's take a look at the packaging here. At the front, you can see a CGI render of Megatron from Revenge of the Fallen there. Baiwei Toys Deformation model. I don't actually know if this is the name of this thing or not, that's just what I read. On this side, you get barely anything. At the back, you get some product shots, which is actually an improvement over previous Baiwei figures that I've owned, so that's cool. If that doesn't sell you on the figure, I don't know what will. On this side, you get barely anything again. At the top, there's literally nothing at all. And at the bottom, there's some Chinese warning stuff that I can't read at all. Alright, I really can't wait to take a look at this, and why don't we just crack this thing open? And here's the Baiwei Deformation model. I still don't know if that's the third-party name or not. Well, let's just call him Megatron out of his packaging. And yes, this figure has definitely lived up to the hype. I absolutely love this thing. Honestly, I've just always wanted that ROTF Megatron mold. And to finally have it after all these times, I absolutely adore it. Not without its issues, mostly because of this weird-ass leg design. But yeah, I think this has the potential to be my favorite Baiwei figure I bought so far. And in order to know why that is, let's jump straight into his accessories. All the accessories that are included with this guy are either necessary add-ons or interchangeable parts. Those being a clean head sculpt, battle damaged head sculpt, spindly arm, massive 5-finger exercise arm, and a pair of wings. Firstly, let's take a look at these two head sculpts, which both look really nice. This is the normal one, and it looks really monstrous, just like how it looked in the film. And this is the battle damaged one to replicate his look from the end of the film. But I do wish that there could have been a bit more paint around this battle damaged area, but that's okay, I guess. Integration is pretty simple. You want to align this tab hole here into this little tab, and then you just insert it like so, and that was incredibly easy. And same goes for the battle damaged head, although it's a bit difficult now. Yeah, make sure that his eye goes through the face there. And then if we move into his right arm, you can attach this massive piece which came with the original figure. Slide it in this mushroom pick like so. There you go, that looks pretty darn sick, doesn't it? And if we detach it, nah! Gotta admit, this is not my favorite type of interchangeable system. And now you can attach this brand new arm which was carried over from the DNA design upgrade kit. Bam! That is very cool, gives him a more symmetrical appearance. His hand is articulated, but I'll talk about that later. And finally, let's talk about these pieces of crap. They look very good in both modes, but the instructions tell you jack squat about them. So I gotta give a huge thank you to my Discord friend, Ano Hattori. Thank you so much on giving me a video instruction on how to install these. And now as we bring in the robot mode here, you can see that there is a glaring gapage around this torso. Look at that, you can stick your whole finger in the... Oh. This is stupid. And fortunately, these wings can fill out those gaps. So you want to configure them into something like this. Make sure that this peg hole and this wingtip piece are aligned. Insert the wing into the torso. And this will latch on incredibly nicely to this back piece. Same thing goes for the other side. And with the wing pieces inserted, you can see that the gap is highly mitigated, and I absolutely love that. You can even transform the figure like this without parts forming, but there is a catch to that, and I'll get to that later. So those were the accessories, nothing too crazy, but those are pretty darn adequate. What's even more than adequate would have to be his details. Comparing Megatron here to this render that I can find, and I think, as always, Hasbro originally did an absolutely fantastic job with this guy. One thing that Baiwei did right where Hasbro did not would be his colors. The original Studio Series figure was cast in this absolutely horrendous looking gray plastic. I mean, what the hell is that supposed to be? And then they released a battle damaged version which looked a bit better, but I think this looks the best out of them all. He may look look a bit too bronze for some people, but I think he looks fine. Doesn't quite match the render that I've given, but it does look like the GLX 3.0 version, so that's something, right? Not gonna lie, as much as I don't really like Revenge of the Fallen, I absolutely love this design from Megatron. It looks incredibly monstrous and menacing, and how is this not the main villain of the movie? And this figure absolutely nails that design. You can see all the intricate sculpted details, some hints of almost copper color. It looks fantastic, reminds me a lot of the Shockwave that I reviewed last time, which coincidentally was actually a retool of this figure, so that's kind of cool. Arms already look as asymmetric as they do, and I think they look great, but to make them look even more asymmetrical, of course you can interchange with this fusion cannon, and that makes him look even more badass in my opinion. I don't care if this blade is inaccurate by being a bit too long, I still really love how this looks. And if you want to, you can compress it, so there's that. Gives a better look at the actual cannon, which is sadly not 5mm compatible, but whatever. The back on this figure is really clean, no kibble at all, with some lovely thruster details, that's always nice. And the legs! I am incredibly torn on this leg design. Like, on one side I think it's cool, but it's also kind of bothersome when you pose them. Now, one running theme with these Baiwei figures is that they are extremely solid on my copy. One thing I've always neglected to mention is that these knockoff companies don't really have as good of a quality control as opposed to Hasbro or Takara, which means that my copy has an incredibly likely chance of being different to yours. Mine here feels incredible, aside from maybe this, but that doesn't necessarily mean yours will be as well. But so far I've not gotten a bad Baiwei copy, so I'm pretty confident in that. I'm also confident that these knee flaps are made out of die-cast metal. What is it with these die-cast placements, man? First on the schlong, then on the knee pad, then on the knee flaps. Like, why not on the treads? I mean, I'm not complaining that there are die-cast, it's so weird. What's not weird, however, is his posability. Just like Shockwave, the head is on a ball joint and a hinge joint, so it can also look all over the place, but it's not as posable as Shockwave, because Shockwave's head was actually on a double hinge joint as opposed to this Megatron, which is only on a single hinge joint. Shoulders can rotate 360 on both, can move out that far, and again, I really love the shoulder asymmetry here. Bicep swivel also on both, elbow bend on both, and they bend in quite a lot. I love that. This side has two hinge joints for these fingers, and on the fusion cannon side you only get this, which is for the transformation. Just like Shockwave, his right arm has a thumb. Why? I don't know. Cool attention to detail though. But on this right arm, you still get a swivel and an elbow bend, but you get 4 individually articulated fingers. That's really nice. And 2 of them are articulated at 2 points. There you go. Also, this one likes to pop off like that, and that's quite scary. I highly recommend to be careful with that. Nothing at the waist, but just like Shockwave, this doesn't bother me that much. Legs can kick forward that far, back that far. Can do the splits, thigh rotation. This weird ass chicken leg design. Wait, no, what the hell is with the term chicken leg design? Like, this is the leg construction of most creatures on Earth. And I personally just like to call them raptor legs because it sounds cooler. So these raptor legs are on 2 hinge joints like this, so you can extend them all the way or curve them in all the way. And finally, you get a nice ankle pivot. Also, I highly recommend to split these toes. It just makes balance much easier. And I guess you can count that as toe posability. Articulation in this guy for what he is incredible. Again, aside from the lack of a waist joint, but that's not quite necessary for this design, I feel. Although again, you have to be wary with the leg design because they are quite awkward. Sometimes he'll stand and sometimes he'll not. So yeah, very similar to Shockwave. Great robot mode, great posability, great details, and great size comparison. Here's Megatron next to my previous review and his mold mate, the Baiwei Spock. Voyager class, Leader class. It's insane. They're both amazing figures though. Comparing him to another Cybertronian Megatron, here's the War for Cybertron Megatron. This thing just looks so pathetic compared to them. Here he is next to G1 Megatron. Megatron Council. Oh yes. Comparing him to a regular 6-inch scale figure, we have the Marvel Legends Mr. Knight. And finally, the Transformers Studio Series Revenge of the Fallen Optimus Prime. Again, as much as I'm not a big fan of Revenge of the Fallen, I think these two look fantastic next to each other. I'm geeking out pretty much here. Although I think Optimus is a bit too small, but I like Megatron being bigger than Optimus. And now we come to the part that I surprisingly enjoyed, especially when compared to this guy. The transformation and the alt mode on this figure are pretty darn good. But I do recommend you transforming him with this spindly arm. I'll talk about why later. And here is Revenge of the Fallen Megatron in his tank mode, and now that's a Cybertronian tank mode. It's this Shockwave. Focusing on this figure now, I just love how heavy infantry it looks. Got 3 cannons, 2 spikes, and a pair of wings? Yeah, this thing flies, dude. So much better than that Dark of the Moon Shockwave alt mode. Kind of a shame too, since that figure is a retool from this figure. Why couldn't they have just designed a better alt mode for that? I don't get it. But I do get why a lot of people like the Revenge of the Fallen design so much. I mean, just look at it. Has a proper turret, some really nice looking treads. This is a tank. Now the thing about these wings. You can transform this figure without parts forming them if you decided to plug this particular arm in. If you transform the figure with this arm on, you'll get this weird angled look. I'm gonna use footage from Articulation video. And the reason as to why I think is because most of the accessories here are from the DNA design upgrade kit. Yet one accessory Baiwei neglected to include is that integrated fusion cannon that can be implemented within this scrawny arm. Kind of a shame, but whatever, I'll display this figure in robot mode anyways. Speaking of which, hello. This is intentional and is a part of the design. I don't get it. Why? But it's movie accurate, so I can't complain at all. It also rolls pretty okay, but it's not gonna roll well in this type of surface. As far as posability goes for this tank mode, you only get a turret hinge joint here and here. Can't rotate at all, but I think that's accurate to the film anyways. But what is accurate to the film is the fact that this tank mode is pretty darn big. Size comparisons. And here's Megatron next to Shockwave, which looks like absolute garbage next to him. The Gamer Edition Megatron, and these two are really cool looking Cybertronian tanks. Earthrise Megatron, which is not nearly as cool. Mr. Knight. And finally, Optimus Prime, and oh man, does Megatron look like an absolute beast next to this thing. You can just imagine. And there goes my review for the Baiwei Deformation model, aka the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Megatron. This figure is just absolutely stellar. Just like my previous Baiwei figures, it took an already cool looking Hasbro figure and amplified it with the amount of paint that it had, the new accessories. I can't say much more about it. It's just really cool. This might be my favorite Baiwei figure so far, and I highly recommend it if you're a fan of the Transformers live action movies. And as always, I hope you all would recommend my review to everyone else. If you have enjoyed it, please do leave a like and a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Hopefully see you all next time. So is it finally time for us to talk about the long-awaited... No, you get an insect. No!